Let's do it.
Ladies and gentlemen,
All right.
welcome. Live taping of episode number 62. We're going to go ahead and kick right off for you.
All right. What happens when you're at your wit's end, regretting the decisions that you've made that left you passionless and empty? You go back to where it all began and rediscover that passion by sharing it with the people you love most. That's what this film is, a celebration of life. But before we get started with today's show, we wanted to take time to address recent events. While we're never shy about sharing our views on the world or generally our political stances, for us, our show has always been a break from the world. A safe space to be together with the people that we love, talking about what we love. Our goal is always to bring joy, laughter, and thought to your movie journey and to your lives. That being said, I know for a vast amount of us, our priorities may have changed dramatically with what's occurred in the past few days. While we, and I'm sure a whole lot of you, are feeling a whole lot of emotions as a result of the US election. We will not allow this to take away our ability to laugh, share, and discuss art with each other and with you. We want to assure you all that this can be your rest stop while we all collectively dust ourselves off and continue this fight. One with the Films has always been and will remain to be a safe space, especially for those who feel unheard, unrepresented, or unsafe by current events. We welcome everyone to share their beautiful life experiences with us, and together we can focus on the art in a way that unites us rather than divides us. While we understand that there will always be differences of opinion, and we will welcome that with open arms, we will not tolerate any hateful commentary or any other action that may threaten the sanctity of the space that we have created and will continue to cultivate. But don't think for one moment that while we are laughing and joking and talking about movies and other nerdy shit that we all love, that we are any less devoted to fixing what is broken. This is how we choose to fight, and we love you all. Now, on with the show.
Thanks, Kay.
All right. And now, an excerpt from Pod. It's Chef, but now he runs a podcast. I only have one thing to say. Okay, maybe two things. You know how hard it is to do this? You know nothing. You risk nothing. We put it all on the line. Our reputations, our income, our sanity, our brain power, anything. Do you have any idea how hard it is to not watch a movie that everyone has loved for 10 fucking years? Those ones that you know you should have watched because you probably love it, but it's been too long, so now you can't watch it. It kind of ends up just being this weird, like, tiny hill that you're probably going to die on, not for any particular reason other than you have ADHD and honestly, a problem. So this concludes our excerpt from Chef,
A brilliant sequel.
but he runs a podcast. It's a wonderful film. You all should check it out. But welcome back, all you sizzling sauces, you crunchy pretzels, and you scrumptious scoundrels. Welcome back to One with the Films. I am your maitre d' and your tasty twink. I love the sauces on my pasta and cheese on my... Anyway, I'm Kay, or Movie Man, or Keegan, or anything you want to call me. I've been called many things in my life, and some of them have been correct, and some of them have been just downright hurtful. Now, joining me is my sous chef, the king of taste, the quirky little sausage with a spicy crust. He's your shrimp on the barbie and your carne asada, these nuts. You know him. You know how he cooks, and he's cooking today. It's Naff.
It is I don't know if I'd be a sous chef. I don't really know what that means.
You're right, line cook.
I was gonna say head of house.
I could
with
like
those
take out the
dashing good looks.
garbage. Actually, I do feel like I would be great at like the front of house, which I've done it before for work, and I was very good at it. So, just saying that would be.
But
me.
then we're
But
working the same
that's me, baby.
job. Then who's in the kitchen? Well, here we are. Joining us is me with flavor.
With a bit of
Know him
MSG.
well, exactly. You know him for sitting in my seat for most of the past 6 weeks. And it's still warm, I'll tell you. But he's the slippery smoothie, the Canadian bacon cheeseburger of my heart, the killer, the river. He hardly knows her. Here's Johnny.
How's it going, everyone? When you mentioned killer, though, I did get a little bit worried about some of our inner discussions in chats.
Don't worry.
Absolutely.
None of that is being. You're not being doxxed, Johnny. You're all good.
Okay,
You're
good.
safe.
We're good. We're good.
Don't worry. Not yet. But we'll see. We'll see. We'll get there, but we got to work up to it. But nonetheless, it's great to have you on the pod, bud. Again,
it's nice to be on here with you on it.
That's more what I mean.
This is great. I don't have to choose between you guys today. Like I get both of you. It's lovely. It's a great change.
This is polyamory at its best.
One of these days, we're gonna need Nav to go on vacation, and then it's just you and me, Keegan.
Exactly, and it will be a blank screen because I don't know how to run this yet. So it's going to be you're gonna hear a lot of clicks, and you're just gonna hear a lot of I think it's on, and very professional sounds of a podcast host.
We love it.
Some light amount of crying.
There will be a fair amount of crying,
Correct amount.
Precise. The correct amount of crying. Speaking of the correct amount of crying, Naf, do you want to tell us a little bit more about I guess, and a reminder that you could, I take a little break and I just forget how to fucking do this.
Don't pretend you knew how to do it before. Don't come out here pretending you knew what you were doing.
That's kind of the MO of my whole life. Pretend you know what you're doing.
That's it, baby.
Now, and a reminder that you can find One with the Films on any podcasting platform of your choice, as well as live and on demand right here. And if you are in the live chat, please feel free to join the conversation. Send a like, a meme, a joke, anything you like.
Hell yeah.
And we'll always love to hear from you. And if you're listening to us on demand, don't worry, we still love you. But just like the middle child, it's just a little less. And
Bro,
that being said,
I'm a middle child, man. Come on.
Absolutely. And so
wasn't this supposed to be a wholesome episode? But
you know what? We got to start off with this is also that kind of friendship where you have to you just kind of got to abuse a little bit in order to actually really show how much you love. And
now you sound like my dad.
There we go. And
real family shit.
Let me tell you guys a little more about what we're doing here today, though.
Why don't you try?
A shout out to George in chat as well, one of my friends. This is one of George's favorite movies. When I told him that we were watching this one, he's like, I have to be here for that one. So, George is in chat. We're doing an episode of the weekly watch list today, and that's what happens when a bunch of friends with unique and wonderful taste in films have tried too hard for too long to finally share and discuss their favorite films with one another. That's where this came from. So if you've been around for a while, you already know the shtick. However, for the uninitiated, the idea is that for every episode, at least one person is watching the chosen film for the first time. So it's all about having a space for creators to share the art that matters most to them and give them a platform to show us all why. So if you like listening to a bunch of nerds geek out and force each other to watch and discuss their favorite films for the very first time, please feel free to follow or subscribe, send us to your friends, and if you like, you can also activate notifications so you never miss a new episode. And of course, we're on all of your favorite socials. 2 links are in the description below for everything. So all that being said, Johnny.
Yes.
This week was your film of choice. And so I'm wondering if you can tell me, Johnny, what is a brilliant film that not enough people have seen?
Absolutely. I think it is Chef.
Chef. Directed by Jon Favreau and came out in 2014?
Yeah, sounds about right. That sounds about the time I was in grade 10, 11.
Yeah, sounds about right.
Around that time.
Yeah.
Right around that time.
What are you talking about, Keegan? You don't know when this movie came out. You haven't seen it.
I remember the movie poster.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but do you reckon you could tell me in one sentence, Johnny, why you chose this film to share with us?
One word you said?
One sentence, baby. One sentence.
Oh,
one
one
word.
sentence. I heard one word, so
Chef.
I'm like, okay, if it's one word, I'm like,
I need
got
hands.
the perfect one.
I need fucking hands.
Bird chef.
If I had to give one sentence about this film, it is just pure, unadulterated hunger for passion.
Hunger for
That's the way I
passion.
would describe it.
I'm so excited to do like a supercut of all of these one sentence pitches at the end of the year because they've all been so good. Great work, Johnny.
Thank you.
But I'm curious. So we'll start with UK. You mentioned in your intro this film came out 10 years ago, and you've not seen any of it. Now I am familiar with your experience watching this film, but I would love to hear from your perspective. What is your experience with this film?
Well, I remember it coming out like that. There was again just in my local theater. There was just the chef poster, and I remember like some of my friends seeing it and saying it was pretty good, and I always meant to get around to it, but it was just again one of those that just kept escaping me. And then it was like, and then it was in like I follow a lot of people on Instagram that would have like various different images on there and be like oh top 10 fun movies or feel good movies or something like that, and Chef was always on there, and I was like, well, and it was amidst a lot of films I really liked, so I was like, oh well, more than likely I will really like this movie. But then just I remember in particular there was one time I was working on a project, and I was really getting to know the editor, and there was a potential that he was going to be going onto a TV show that had a lot of cooking and stuff like that on it, and we were both, and I was his assistant editor at the time, and so I was looking at like a ton of movies that would be like the best movies to watch for like inspiration, cutting wise and stuff like that. And this movie was always at the top of the list there. And I was like, I gotta see it. And again, just life passed me by for no other reason than that. Like I don't have an excuse. And even though I put in my intro that it was like, oh, these little hills, I'm like, this one has always been truly one that but I think it was always one that I knew I needed to take the time to see it. Like I couldn't just put it on the background or rush it. I wanted to like give it my attention.
You need to give it a day, to say the least.
No,
like
absolutely.
You watch the movie and then you got to go out for dinner.
Truly.
Yeah. No, that definitely makes a lot of sense. And I'm curious, like having seen the film now, like were there many surprises along the way for you story-wise?
Oh, yeah.
Or did you have like, was it all spoiled for you?
I mean, honestly, it's all yes and no. Like I kind of knew what the film was about, but I didn't know how reluctant he was to the food truck idea. I thought the idea was, I think I was surprised that it was a chef at the peak of his career, or kind of like past his prime, but still like he was known going and doing a food truck. I think I thought it was going to be somebody like that's trying to be an up and comer kind of thing.
Like an underdog story.
Yeah, like an underdog story.
Yeah.
I liked this a lot better because I think Neff and I watched it last night together. Spoiler alert for how we experienced this movie. But in general, I think that we were talking about there's a lot of things that I didn't expect the movie to be a commentary of. That it was one of those things where I'm like, oh, when you think it's just a movie about food, it's like, oh, it's a really good movie. But then when you understand a lot of other layers of the creative process and a lot of stuff there, I was very surprised. And so, yeah, I think that was just mainly because I kind of knew that it was about a father-son thing because I just remember the kid on the poster. And I just was like, and so I was like, I assume some of this is, especially when they were having issues earlier, I kind of was just like, okay, I bet that they'll end up in the food truck together. But it was not the surprises that made the movie for me. It was definitely like, you could have told me the entire plot of this movie, and watching it, I still would have been
felt
like,
every single hit.
I would have felt everything. It's like, it's one of those where the surprises don't make the movie. But Naf, before we get to Johnny's, because obviously Johnny's the one that brought it, what was your experience with this movie? Like, what was sort of your feeling with it? Because obviously you have a love for this movie that, I mean, for like the past couple of years of our friendship, I remember like probably every couple months I'll hear you offhandedly just mention this movie.
Yeah. It's funny because like my experience with the film has also changed. Like this most recent watch, I went in with a very different context. Like thanks to Johnny, of course, which I'm sure we'll talk about in our discussion. But like I had always just viewed this film as just what it was. And there is some kind of other context there, which we'll jump into with the fun facts. So this watch was a little bit different, and I was kind of experiencing that through you as well, Kay. But like I came across this for the first time just like a random watch. I just had heard people say like maybe like it's good, blah blah. And one of the things that I love about it is that I follow a subreddit called Film Recommendations, and often they'll I want some great horrors, I want some wholesome films. Like people are always asking for the same sort of stuff. And as you had said, Kay, this film always shows up on those kinds of lists. People say you watch it, and it's beautiful, so you can just enjoy it. You can have a great time. So, I watched it just with no prior context, and I absolutely fell in love with it. And I've seen it now. This has been my 5th watch of the film. I love showing this film to people and watching it with them. So I think like besides my first watch, every other watch has been like showing it to someone, so sitting down and showing it with like a then partner or with a friend or whatever. And so it's been a really great thing where, as we said in the intro, this film is about sharing something you're passionate about. And I love that my experience with it has been sharing something that I'm passionate about. And it's just constantly had the best experience for me and these people. And obviously, last night as well, like I found that there are still key moments in the film that still get me, I love this film almost as much as The Untouchables, like it's up there with, they're in that same echelon of those are the films that I'm going to choose to show people about me or when they want or need happiness, and it's funny, I was thinking about it just then, how like I'm going to watch The Untouchables this week, and I need to after having watched this. But what about you, Johnny? So you chose to bring this film to us, right? So I want to get into that in a second, but firstly, where did you come to find this film for the first time?
So I still remember the day I watched it. Before I actually watched it, I remember seeing only one trailer for this movie. But because of the actors in it, it's stuck in my mind. So the power of star power still remains, I think, at least on an adolescent me. Because, I saw Robert Downey Jr. in it. I saw Scarlett Johansson was in it. I saw Jon Favreau. I saw Sofia Vergara. I saw John Leguizamo. And, just like knowing those actors since like, I was around that 14 to 16 age range. Like I had already seen Iron Man 2, Iron Man 1. I've seen Ice Age, and I associated John with that role. So seeing them kept this film in my mind. And I remember I was on vacation in Seattle with my mom, dad, and little brother. Yep. My dad and little brother went to go watch some kind of air show because they love planes. And then me and my mom were just like hanging around a mall. And then my mom was like, let's watch a movie. What do you recommend? And then I saw Chef was an option. And I immediately just went, let's watch Chef. It's got cooking in it, and my mom loves to cook. So I'm like, Mom, you're going to love this film. Sorry, Keegan, not to brag.
That you have a mom? That like...
Sorry. Joke just popped in. I had to say it. I was terrible.
You gave me a setup, and I'm always happy. That is going to be the fucking clip of this one.
Why?
But yeah,
my mom
I
never
just
got to see this film, I don't think. So that's fine.
It's okay.
I'm like my mom.
My mom would have loved this movie. Actually, she would absolutely. This is her brand of movie. Aww. Anyway, like beauty aside, continue.
I just remember watching this movie with my mom, and then after we finished the movie, we were just so goddamn hungry, and we went to the Cheesecake Factory.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
I got a mac and cheese burger. It's again, this memory lives rent free in my head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was telling Keegan there was because we were discussing the film as we kind of went as well, and we would like pause and talk about stuff, and there was a bit where we get to the grilled cheese sandwich scene, and I actually was like, shut up, this is my favorite scene in the entire fucking movie. And we're just watching him make a grilled cheese sandwich. And it is just so good. And George in chat said that he had no idea what a cubano was until he watched this. And I replied back with, me either. And I should know what that is.
Yeah, that's racist towards yourself.
Whoa. You're the only one in here with a racist president. I'm kidding. No. Moving on.
Correct.
But Johnny, how many times do you reckon you've seen this movie now?
y'all's presidencies, I don't think, or general leadership, I don't think fully is blameless.
Correct. But yeah, how many times do you reckon you've seen this movie now, Johnny?
I think I have seen this film probably around 25 times
Wow,
because I remember
okay.
watching it the first time in theaters. And
Yep.
then, I remember getting this movie on Blu-ray for a Christmas once because I asked my mom for it. And then from there, I just kept watching it.
That's
and
impressive.
Then whatever bad thing came up, like my first ever breakup, I would listen to My Chemical Romance, Green Day, and I would watch Chef,
Nice. Yeah. It definitely
Perfect.
has that
Perfect combo.
like the film knows what it's doing emotionally, if that makes sense. Like it knows where it's starting emotionally and it is taking you on that journey. So I feel like that if you are feeling low, it can kind of come to you and hold your hand and go, I feel this way as well. Like you're not actually alone. It does that's what I was feeling yesterday a lot with this, where I was like, this film is holding my hand right now, telling me it's okay. And it's just going to take me on a little bit of a journey right now with this person who's also struggling. And by the time it ends, it's like, life isn't perfect, but yeah. George has seen it 3 times as well. So, yeah. But I was wondering too, Johnny, like with your watches of this, is this one that you've done a lot of watches on your own too? Or is it a lot of experience like this where you get to show it to people?
I remember showing it to my aunt, my girlfriends, and it's a lot of watching it on my own as well, though.
Yeah.
I think the amount of times I've seen it by myself outnumbers the amount of times I've shown it to other people.
For sure. I get you. Yeah. Well, I mean, look at 25 watches. There'd be a fair amount that you've done by yourself. But that's awesome.
That's a lot of friends for me. That number doesn't add up.
It's just me and my 25 personalities. What are you talking about? Like,
Shunchy Doug, Mike, hi.
But what do you guys say we jump into some fun facts?
Do it.
Hit us with it.
Sweet. Okay. Premiering at the South by Southwest Film Festival on March 7th, 2014, this beautiful film was written and directed by Jon Favreau and lovingly crafted on a budget of a mere 11 million USD. The film was moderately successful, bringing in 46 million USD and garnering critical praise for its direction, music, writing, story, and performances. And while Favreau has rebuked the claims, there's a lot in this movie that leans into the idea that it serves as an allegory for where his career was at around this point in his life. The film was popular enough to get an Indian remake by the same name a few years later that didn't get nearly as much praise. As of recording, this film has a 7.3 out of 10 on IMDb from 237,000 reviews and 3.7 on Letterboxd as well. It's also remained enough of a cultural phenomenon that it's resulted in a real-life food truck being parked in a Las Vegas hotel that's serving food from the film, which, no matter what videos you might see in the coming days, is delicious. Jon Favreau actually studied under the chef Roy Choi, who consulted on the film, and also sent Jon Favreau to a week of intensive French culinary school where he learned a bunch of skills which he brought into the film with him, namely yelling, "Hands! I need fucking hands!" Probably. There's also a follow-up series on Netflix which isn't set within that universe, but it reunites the crew to cook and eat together and features a lot of the actors that Favreau's worked with over the years, and of course on this film as well. Speaking of which, the film also stars a few big names in small parts, including Dustin Hoffman, Robert Downey Jr., Scarlett Johansson, Sofia Vergara, and a cameo from comedian Russell Peters. But the film, the stars of the film really are Jon Favreau himself, John Leguizamo, and then, of course, MJ Anthony as Percy, the emotional linchpin of the story. You can't really help but love this movie. It is filled with joy from start to finish, and like we said, in terms of taking you on that journey, it's not like all happy the whole time. But it's a really easy watch whenever you need something to revitalize your joy. But do either of you guys have anything that you want to add, or if anyone's in chat, any other fun facts about this film you'd like to share?
Nah, you got all the fun facts. At least
no, he did not. He almost he got almost all of them. Oh. Now, this isn't a fun fact necessarily about the movie, but Naf hinted at a certain event that happened, and I have to bring it up and I have to talk about it. So, after DiadCon earlier this year, Naf and I had decided, because he was in the US again for the second time, we want to go on a road trip. And of course, one of the things you got to do is go to Vegas. And we're asking Johnny, I was like, "Oh, Johnny, you've been to Vegas. Like, what would you recommend going to Vegas?" And Johnny was like, "Well, did you know that the chef truck is there?" And I hadn't seen the movie, so I'm like, that's meaningless to me. But Naf was like, "Oh my God, the chef truck. We got to go to the chef truck. We got to go and do this." And I'm like, "Okay, Naf, let's go to the chef truck." Gets to the last day we're there. we go on this giant tower and we go up high, and then we come back and we're like, let's go and get some food before we hit
Well,
the road.
I'll add one thing there as well. It was kind of a wild goose chase trying to find this thing. Like
that is trying to
it's
get
like
through a casino in general was insane.
Hotel casino, like just chilling off to the side. Like I'm sure we walked
on like the
past it,
third
like, 5
bottom
times.
floor.
Yeah.
Like we were trying to figure it out.
But we
and
found
it. It's not as we found it, but it's not as convenient as you would think. And we get there. And I'm like, okay, I'm looking at like what I want to get and things there, and like we purchase a couple, and I record a video, which we will post on our socials because, as Neff said, it's we have to do it. Neff wants me to take a video, and I'm like, oh yeah, this will be really cool. So I'm taking a video, and he's like, it's my first time tasting the chef food. Takes a bite, tastes the texture of a pickle. His face turns absolutely white, like mine, and he goes, there's a pickle. There's a pickle.
It's like I knew there was a pickle in there.
This is the worst video to promote this truck ever. And it's not for the lack of this food being good. It's because, and I would have had the same reaction. I'm glad he took a bite before I did. But it was like, he just was like, I hate pickles. I thought it would have changed. And it's like
it's wild that like I did actually ask at the front if I could get it with no pickles, and they said no. And like I kind of looked at Kay and I was like, no, you know what? Like let's give it a crack. Like I'll try, you know? Because it was one of those things that there are, anyone who's neurodivergent knows that there are just pickiness with food that is just really, really hard to break out.
Really
of.
bad.
And
me with tomatoes.
Like fresh tomatoes for me. Like I can't do fresh tomatoes, can't do pickles. Like they hit my mouth and it actively makes me gag. It's awful.
I understand.
And I thought
I'm the same way.
Why not try it anyway? And I did, and I took a bite of it. And I think like most of the video actually doesn't have the me spitting it out, and because it was almost like he took the video and then we're like, okay, cool, done. And then once he was done, I like looked at him and I was like, oh no. And it just came out. And I think about it now and I want to like gag, just like I hate that the taste and the smell of like a pickle and the feeling. Nah. But nonetheless, I thought, I can just take the pickle out and try and eat it, but it's soaked in pickle juice, so I couldn't. But alas, I would love to try pork sandwich
Pickleless
again.
Cubano.
Yeah,
or that.
A Cubano once again.
I think they had the grilled cheese there. I think that we didn't get that for whatever reason.
Yeah, but it was a really funny moment. But we'll jump into the conversation about the film. Kay, do you want to take us through a spoiler alert and we'll jump right in?
I would love to. Before we go any further, all these conversations are not spoiler free. We're not necessarily doing a play-by-play, but we're talking about the film with the expectation that, shocker, you've already seen it. It's always cool to go and watch the film and check back later just to make sure you do. And even if you haven't seen the film, chances are we'll convince you to finally make that leap. And if you want to know what film to watch in advance so you can listen all and come in prepared next week, links are in the description below for all the socials, so check us out there. And if you listen all the way to the end of today's episode, we'll be revealing our next film and our next guest right here. So let's go.
Yeah. So first thing that I wanted to bring up is kind of an open discussion around like why this film for Jon Favreau. We were talking about how like he has rebuked the claims, but we do kind of like, I feel like it is what it is. Yeah, like we all are aware. And when you do watch it with that mentality, you kind of know. But Kay, I want to kick off with you. Like you mentioned that this film felt a lot like a metaphor for the creative process for you. Do you want to talk to that a little bit for me?
Yeah, well, and even if it wasn't like, okay, it's directly about his experience. Like we were talking about that we were most likely thinking that it was probably his experience with Iron Man 2, given the fact that a fair amount of the cast from Iron Man 2 is in it. And obviously that was not as well received as Iron Man 1. And, in general, the film felt like it was a little bit more of a hodgepodge and things there. Bottom line was we were talking about it, and I thought it was really brilliant because a lot of filmmakers will do this, right? They'll write a film about making movies. And it's understandable. They're beautiful. They're great, but they always feel to me a little bit like too much inside baseball. where it's like, to other filmmakers, they're going to love this. And I'm probably a lot of audience members will like this too, if you like movies, but it feels like a little bit masturbatory to me, of being like, you're making a film about a filmmaker that's the greatest filmmaker of all time, but he's not respected anymore. I'm like, come on,
buddy.
Like, exactly. Like, you know, like it's one thing if you're making about it like a different thing, like Fablemans. It's like, oh, growing up with a little bit of movies, but it's more about like a divorce, things like. Anyway, point is, I was telling Naf, I was like, you know, this film is the best way to talk about being a filmmaker without talking about being a filmmaker. Like it's very much that same energy of the same effort he puts into his craft and the same things that are asked of him. It felt like an indie director that gets into the studio system, and it is the thing of like, oh, I can make whatever I want. I have all this shit at my disposal. But then the studio kind of coming to you and being like, yeah, you could.
Yeah.
But could you just give us the hits?
Yeah.
Yep.
Could you just give us the like, again, and Dustin Hoffman brings up a great point. He and I think what I love about this film is I don't think any of these characters in this film are wrong. Like, I don't think there's, I mean, obviously there are some that are misled, and I think that there are ones that like, but you understand, like, each of these characters are treated in the writing department with respect. Like Dustin Hoffman's character he's looking out for his restaurant, and he does respect this guy, but he is like, if this reviewer's coming, why wouldn't you do your hits? Yeah. Like, you've been doing this menu and it's there. It's like, you can understand Dustin Hoffman wanting to play it safe.
Absolutely. Yeah, like, he's a dick, right? But he's also just like a guy trying to make sure that everything goes well. And, you know, you extrapolate that out to, obviously, like the experience probably with Iron Man 2. And like I said to you, I was like, okay, Keegan, Dustin Hoffman is Disney, you know? And it's like, when you think about it, it's like, yeah, like, we liked Iron Man 1, grab the same stuff that was in there and put it in. Like, we don't need all the fancy stuff, just make it the same thing. They're going to like it. You know, it's a really busy night. We know that people are going to come and watch this movie, so we need to make sure that they feel the same way they felt in the first one, you know? And it's like, it's kind of rough that it got to kind of go around that it did. And I love also, to your point, Kate, like, it doesn't actually start with like, he's the best chef in the world or anything like that. This reviewer is somebody who appreciated our main character so much in his early career. So it's like, I knew you as you were coming up and you were making cool stuff, and now you're like washed, you know? That's kind of the vibe that's coming from this guy. And it happens at the end of the film too, where he says, you know, like, of course I have to be pissed off. Like, I was one of your first backers. You were one of my boys, you know, and you let me down. And it's like, shit, that is actually a really interesting perspective.
Well, that's the thing, is like, so often in these movies, like, critics are often treated like scum of the earth, or like asshole, and it is just the yelling at them scene, and then it's them being like, I'm sorry, I was wrong. It's like, but this film takes a more nuanced approach to that. Yeah. And what Naf and I were talking about, which was, but the reviewer was right. Yeah. The thing is like, the reviewer was mean, but he was right. Yeah. Like, the thing is that, and Jon Favreau knew he was right. Like that character knows he's right.
And it's what he says in that conversation with Scarlett Johansson. Yeah. That whole, I should have just cooked the stuff that I knew I wanted to cook. It would have been fun. I just like.
But that's also not, and this is what's interesting about the whole thing, right? When he is fired, or like from the result, but he comes back to the restaurant, that's not what he brings up. He doesn't bring up, I was going to cook a whole menu for you. He's now defending how hard it is to do the menu that they already did.
Exactly.
So, and that's what's interesting to me also, is because, like, in theory, he could have stood by his point with Scarlett Johansson, but he would rather defend what the guy ate to begin with.
One of the really cool things about that scene too is that, that was one of the parts of the script that wasn't shared with the team. So Jon Favreau came in, he'd prepared what he was going to say, but every reaction in that restaurant is a real reaction to what he's saying. Obviously, they're not real people live streaming something and tweeting it. They're all actors. But like, people's faces, their reaction, there's a bit of like Dustin Hoffman actually trying to like hide his laughter there as well that are like actually them going, oh my God, what? And it is wild how, in terms of like the direction for this film, how uncomfortable that scene is, because the second he walks in, it does feel like it's building up to this, like, this is going to be a moment, and it is not a moment. Like, from the second he starts,
not in the way you think it's going to be.
Like, horrifying. And the second he starts, you go, I need you to stop. I need you to stop. But he gets all of his frustrations out in this moment, everything. And I know that, Johnny, you were saying that this film in particular is not necessarily like a passion project from your point of view, but like a venting project. I feel like this scene encompasses that a lot. But do you want to talk to that a little bit more?
Please, I would love to know what you think, John, in that regard.
It was just, I remember watching this movie and just, like you guys said, it's not him trying to explain what he could have done, what he should have done. It's him just, having all that frustration, all that pressure, all that just self-loathing as well in some respects put out there and directed at this person instead, right? And plus, one of my favorite details is just not only him going like, do you know how hard I worked for this? Do you know how hard my staff?
Team.
Exactly. Because it also encompasses that idea of it's not just one person who makes a movie. It's an entire community almost.
It's like,
that does it, right?
It's that I heard it said like ages ago, I don't remember who it was, but like it's a miracle that any movie gets made, good or bad. Like the fact you see it from start to finish, it is a miracle. Everything that could go wrong goes wrong.
Well, and I love what you're saying, John, because it's also the thing of like you hear people trashing something and it's like you think you're kind of trashing one person, but it's like, nah, bitch, you're trashing this entire team, this entire like hundreds upon hundreds of people that wanted to. Again, it's the stuff that I have critiques of media. We all that's the job, and that's what we should have. As I think this movie proves that there is a necessity for this, there is a desire, and there is validity to this, but nonetheless, all things can be true. And it's kind of, and I'm curious, I want to know what your full on view with the continuing, but it's like, it is just this metaphor. And I think it's so beautifully done because you also just enjoy this film for what it's trying to say about food and about all that too.
Yeah.
And it's just, it doesn't just work itself. Like, we're talking about it as food. We're talking about it as movies. It could just as easily be applicable to just any form of general art, television, comics, books, whatever.
As Kay was saying before, like, I think it's especially real now where like, I want to talk about films on the internet, and I found it really hard to like actually have the desire to come back and launch the kind of rebrand of like the Scene by Nav channel. Cause I'm just like, I actually, in this space, in this like discuss art, I just like, I don't have the energy to deal with how like film Twitter and like film talk kind of is, if that makes sense. Like I want to sit here with you guys and talk about it, like I'm like, here is my safe, my happy space. And I'm like, again, like luckily for us on the podcast, there hasn't actually been anything that we've come across yet that we haven't liked. And I think that goes to show the people that we choose to share stuff with us. It's just, it's so, we're so like, what's the word? I don't want to say like similar in what we like, because we all have such different life experiences, but most of like the vibe that comes from that film is really similar. So we always know that we're going to be getting into something that we're probably going to like.
And we know the people that are going to send us something that we never have even fucking heard of.
Yeah.
Or we never have had this thing. And it's always like, again, it's as Jon Favreau says, where he's like, he talks about how like part of the joy of being a chef is this idea of like people coming in and trusting you almost being like, hey, you might like this, and being like, you're going to enjoy that part. And that's kind of what, I don't know, you and Neff, you and I would talk about this, like as our philosophy with this entire show is we're trying to expand the palette. We're trying to get you beyond your things and get ourselves beyond things that I'm like, for a while, I wasn't really a horror guy. I was very scared of shit. And then I started watching stuff and it's like, no, this isn't as scary as I thought it would be. And it's incredible. Yeah. It's so moving. And you're like, and once you open yourselves up to it, it's incredible.
Yeah, exactly right. And I think that's a lot of what this film is too, right? Like you do have people that are just closed into that box, sort of stuck within that box, doing the same thing all the time. And it's like, you see, which moves into sort of the next like category here as well. Cause I feel like the film through its cinematography really shows us what passion looks like too. And also shout out to Pep, who's jumped in chat as well, saying that he and Johnny has matching hairstyles. It's because you're both of you are copying Manny Jacinto.
I did show my barber a picture of Manny and just like, can we do this? And he's like, yeah.
But I think that even when you're looking at the scene where Jon Favreau has to take all the ingredients he bought home, and you have the people all cooking in the kitchen, trying to get the normal menu out, and it's obviously all chaotic, and we've got our reviewer like just laughing at it and being like, this is like a joke, right? Versus, and it's all shot in a kitchen. It's very like surgical. It's very bland lighting versus how we see everything he's cooking at home with all these intimate, like sort of almost like sweeping shots. Like it's really close and there's so much color. Like it's this beautiful like saturation and these top down shots of everything he's making. You're actually seeing art, and then down to the shot of them putting the lava cake in front of the Ramsey Michelle, the reviewer.
I just referred to him as Uncle from The Bear.
I was thinking it's funny he plays like the same role in The Bear.
Pretty much, right?
But like it sits down and it's like there isn't anything like wrong with what you've presented. Like it's a chocolate lava cake. It's a little brownie thing that like it's there. It looks fine. But you compare it to what he's making on the other side, and it's like you have art and you have like the deliverable, if that makes sense. I love that throughout the film, like cinematography and food kind of just go hand in hand. It as we said, one of my favorite scenes in the film is him making the grilled cheese sandwich, and it makes me hungry. Yeah. And I know it makes you hungry as well, Johnny.
Every single time. I bought a burrito this time because I was watching this movie again.
Like go on, Kay.
Yeah, it's just you and I were talking about it. I have a great respect for culinary. I work in a kitchen right now, a front of house, but it's like, and again, it's like
Scarlett Johansson.
Not exactly.
Yeah.
I am Scarlett Johansson. God damn it.
1/8.
And so
there we go. There is some seasoning.
Absolutely, a little bit. Like a pepper and a little spice. But now, my feeling with it though is I always have admired the process of making food, and like right now I've been getting into cocktail making, like mixology, and I'm teaching myself like better cooking techniques and things like that, just because I've been very curious, because it's a skill I've wanted to learn for so long that it's like actually taking the time to kind of learn it. And I just have had so much admiration for the field, and it's such a beautiful thing, as you're saying, Naf. Like we talked about it when that scene came up, where it's such an odd, like, again, it's so brilliant because it's a master craftsman cinematography wise too, where it's like nothing is wrong with the shots that they're showing you in the restaurant.
Yeah.
Technically, nothing is wrong, but there's just a little something off. Maybe the dish is not fully center frame, or it's just a little, or maybe it's white on white on white.
Extra lack of care.
It's just it's and you hit it, Neff. I think as saying deliverable, I would go it's film and it's content.
Oof.
It's the difference there of being like it's there. It's made with the same ingredients, the same passion. It's the same thing, but it's not. And it's like you can't really. It's hard to identify what's what, right? Like it's like to maybe the untrained eye, it's like there is no difference, but there is something lost in the feeling behind it, right? And that's what I think this film captures so beautifully. Is there's nothing wrong with the menu. There's nothing wrong with his menu.
The food's edible.
It's great. And as he says, so many people come in, they do this thing, they're doing all of that. They want to enjoy the food. And it's like, it's a menu that's been working for 10 goddamn years.
Yeah.
Why would it be any different?
I think that, like, to that point, one of the things that this film really drives is like its vibe as well. Like I could imagine it being on all these lists of like its vibes. And we'll talk about how the kind of performances lean into that a little bit. But I do feel like, particularly me being like Latin American, like there's a lot of my culture in here, and a lot of the music that I listened to growing up in here. I was telling King, like, these are some of the best needle drops, like ever. They're just so good, the songs hit at the right time, and like that's like, it makes me really proud of my culture, that I feel like without, like, if this were of a different what's the word, like kind of food that he was making and with the different people, like I don't feel like it would feel exactly the same naturally, you know? And that's not to say that other like cultures are without their vibes too, because it would be like really different, yeah. But it's so beautiful watching someone who was kind of brought into the culture and fell in love with it. And I love the scenes earlier with like Sofia Vergara where she takes him out to Miami, and you can tell that she kind of knew the whole time what was going to happen. Like she took him out for Cubanos, and then she looks at him, she's like, not as good as yours. And then it's like, oh, maybe I'll talk to him about the food truck. Is he here? And she's like, maybe I can make a call. And you know the whole time she knew.
Yeah.
And I love
She played him.
She played him, yeah, in the best way possible. Yeah, like it's not in a bad way at all. Yeah,
in the way that like your friend who knows what you really need is like knows that you're not going to allow me to just say you should do this. I have to kind of socially manipulate my way into giving you what you need.
Me with this podcast.
Yeah.
Literally, like,
yeah,
I'm Sofia Vergara
literally.
and you're Jon Favreau, and that works on so many levels.
That works.
I am double cheeked
with this
up.
situation.
But
I have the double cheeks in this relationship, and we both know it. And that's.
I mean, can we get an inspection? I could be the judge for you guys.
yeah,
I'm
for
okay
sure.
with this.
I'll send you those pictures after, and Cal's in chat too, right? Cal, thanks for coming to hang out.
Hey.
Absolutely.
But
Hey, Cal.
yeah, I think that it is. Again, obviously, the film has this insane vibe about it, right? And I also love that it's like passion kind of begets like passion. Like that is, what's the word? It's irresistible watching somebody be passionate about something. Like we talk about, my favorite like colloquial term is like the competency boner. You know, like I'm watching someone be really good at something, and that makes me what's the word? Like hard. No,
you just want to try it. No, genuinely
like,
though. Like
it's
when
not
he's
necessarily
making
that.
that
It's like
angel
there's
hair
an
pop,
attractiveness to it.
Not in like a vulgar sexual,
it becomes
but like
irresistible.
In the
I
best way
want
that I can
more of
put it.
this. You know, like
Yeah.
I want to see you do more. And I love that it's so irresistible that it bleeds into the other people here. That you've got like John Leguizamo has followed Jon Favreau's character for a while. They've worked together, and he's like, anywhere you go, I'm going with you. Like I'm gonna be there. And then he's like, oh, I've got this shitty little food truck I'm putting it together. Guess who's there? Like 2 minutes of screen time later. Like there's no doubt. He's like, oh, dude, you sounded happy on the phone. I haven't heard you sound happy in years. Therefore, there was no way on earth I wasn't coming here.
Exactly. I wanted part of that. I wanted some of that.
Exactly. Like I needed it. And like John Leguizamo puts up one of my favorite performances of his in this film. One of your favorites as well, Kay, if you wanted to talk to it.
Yeah, absolutely. It was one of the main topics I want to talk about. But I wanted to, before we touch fully on John Leguizamo, I wanted to touch on something that you were saying, because I think it's a perfect transition. And it was just a scene that I was debating making this scene an entire bullet point for me. But there was a topic later on I really wanted to talk about. But there was a scene similar to what you were talking about, Neff, about like favorite scenes of this movie. One of the ones that I thought was so perfectly articulated in a way of that we'll get fully into later on. But it was one of my favorite scenes in the movie, which was when he's talking with his son, and his son is like says something akin to I forget if it's the same moment, but I think it is, where it's he burns the sandwich, but it's like, well, they're not paying for it.
Yeah.
And he's like
it's like the look that John Leguizamo gives.
Come outside with me.
Yeah.
You know, it's the look in that moment where you just kind of like, oh, something just happened.
Like, sure
you said the thing. And it's almost, again, like John Leguizamo, like it has worked with this man that probably Jon Favreau's almost given him the same talk at some point. Like it's like, it's one of those like talks that's like, ooh, you touched on the thing that we all know you don't say to this person. It's like somebody saying, oh, Last Jedi's overrated, and then just everybody that knows Naf being like, ooh. It's that face. It's the Naf saying,
no, I made that
well.
exact same face when Naf and I went ziplining in Vancouver. When we went ziplining, we had like that one girl with us, and she's like, oh, what's your favorite Star Wars movie? And I'm like, I think mine's Last Jedi. She's like, oh, I'm judging you for that.
And then just Naf just going, well, sister, the feeling's mutual.
At my side.
I feel like in that moment, though, it was a bit like, hey, you're in charge of my safety right now, so I'm not going to make you look like a fool.
After we were done.
Was it? I don't remember. I thought it was as we were going up.
No, it was after we were done, luckily.
Luckily.
Yeah.
But yeah, like it is.
but yeah,
absolutely like inherent to that.
but I guess to the point of the scene that I love about is when him saying, you like working in this food truck? And he says, yeah, I do.
Yeah.
And then he says, because I love it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, I love it. And I'm really fucking good at it.
Yeah.
And and it's that thing of him saying, I get to touch people's lives with what I do. And and he points out kind of this idea of like, I love doing this with you. I love sharing this with you, but understand this is mine. Like you might have other things and that's fine, but this is mine.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand. And it's kind of when I get into my writing and I've had to earn that back in that moment of like writing and creating. And I'm going to tear up a little bit. I was very honored to have NAF actually be there in person when I did my last, the project that I've directed for the first time since fucking college. And it was like, it was a moment for me of being like, it was a chef moment where it felt like, oh, here I am. I'm actually doing the thing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I really resonated with him saying, I get to touch people's lives with what I do. And it might sound silly. It might sound those things there, but I've seen it with shit that I've done. And I really related to him being like, because I love it and I'm good at it. And it's that kind of thing of you can stay here. You can do this whole thing, but understand that I'm letting you into a sacred space.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it was really cool for him kind of drawing that boundary with this character. Like just, again, I think it's an important thing for people to be able to understand where it's like, no, we're not doing that.
Mm-hmm.
No. What comes out of my kitchen is excellence. That's what I expect.
Yeah.
And going to that, what I love and going to your setup now for John Leguizamo, I was watching this with you and I told you that like shamefully, not shamefully, the first thing I ever saw John Leguizamo in was the making of The Mandalorian season 2. And I realized, he's the voice of that guy. Yeah. And
I was going to say not Ice Age.
Well,
not
I guess
Super Mario.
I found out it was Ice Age. That he was Sid the Sloth, but it was the thing for me where I was like, I just thought Sid the Sloth. I didn't think John Leguizamo. Like
for me, it's the Mario Brothers movie.
Yeah,
I've never seen that
Luigi
Mario Brothers movie. I do not intend to unless one of you fuckers decides.
We're on,
to
baby.
do
I
it.
think we should. That's our next movie now, guys.
And look, my favorite scene is so what's your name? Luigi Mario, and yours Mario. So how many Marios are there between the two of you? 3. Luigi Mario. Elite. Screenwriting.
But the thing about it is, it's like what John Leguizamo always does, and now that we've watched him in so many things, but my favorite thing is that Whoosh said that we need to do it, and I'm like shit. And so, but my thing is that I look at his performances, and he always just has a great way of grounding whatever he's in. Mm-hmm. Like every time you watch him, John Leguizamo always feels so real. He just whatever, like whether it's John Wick, Julie Lamar, and or this, like just anything. And what he does with this movie is he really he reminds me of, I was telling Naf, like there's a couple of guys in my kitchen. There's one guy in particular. I was talking to him today about this movie where I was like, you remind me of this character. And he was like, I love that movie. So he took it as a great compliment. It was very much a thing that this guy just is the best kind of hype man. He is that, like when we talk about like true friendships in movies, like the Samwise Gamgees of the world and of fiction and things like that, he's one of them. Like the way he portrays this guy is he's like, yeah, I'm going to bust your balls. I'm going to do this, but he's also not afraid to be genuinely sincere. Yeah. With Jon Favreau, like he's like, yeah, this thing that you just made, one of the best things I've ever tasted. And he's like calling the other guy over. You gotta like taste this. You gotta do that. And I love that he just shows up. And my favorite thing is, as Naf, you were pointing out, and I want to turn to you guys because I want to know what your guys' opinion on him is. But I love the scene where he gets out of the taxi cab and he's like, I can't pay you. And he's like, where do I sign? And it's just like his whole thing of like, it's like Jon Favreau's trying to talk him out of it. And the guy's like,
I'm here, baby.
Like,
I'm here.
Job sucks.
Yes.
I'm here.
The answer, like, you know,
I'm
credit
here.
cards are max. I don't have any money for this. He's like, bro, I'm in Miami. This is my place. Like, I have a cousin. I'm gonna put a paint job on it. I'm gonna get the sound system. Like, we're good. And the hard cut from that last scene of like, hey, you guys go to the hotel, get everything set up. I'm gonna go take care of the truck and I'll pick you up in the morning. That change, and again, that needle drop is so good. And we get
it's such a good needle drop.
Yeah, just happening. You know, it's all happening. And he does. He gives a brilliant performance here. And as you said, I think that it's one of those like special kind of performances and special kind of friendships that feel like the chemistry is insane between these two guys. Like as friends, of course, right? It's like they were roommates, but no. The chemistry between like our two leads is actually so insane. It feels like there are years and years and years of experience there. You know what I mean? It doesn't feel like two actors who were just like slapped in a room and told, hey, go, make it happen. And I think John Leguizamo has the ability to do that in almost any role that he's in. I think that he, you know, John Wick, it's like such a small little piece, but you know, the second he's there, that there's like, oh, there's history here. He plays that really well. Yeah, and he stands out in this a lot, and he's funny. He's you know, comedic relief in the time you need it, and he's real in the times you need it as well. There are those scenes in the bar where they're getting those drinks and they're just like, oof, you know, like, and he's like, I've got another couple other jobs lined up. I was like, oh yeah, you do. All right, boss, no worries. He plays it so well. But other standout like performances for you in this film, Johnny? I imagine there's one cameo that you loved a lot.
Russell Peters?
No, come on. That is funny.
Well, I mean, funny enough, the main reason why I really want to go watch this as well is because my mom and I was bonding over Russell Peters' stand-up. So
cool. Yeah.
I went at first for him. But in terms of other cameos, like RDJ's fun in it. He plays RDJ, not gonna lie, but like it's always nice to see RDJ.
Naf and I were joking that the scene that RDJ is in was Jon Favreau transcribing the meeting of him trying to get RDJ to be in Chef. And I was like, that's what this feels like. Is him going over and being like, the like receptionist is pregnant. Like I don't know, like it may be mine, it may not be. And it's like, it could be all like, it's just sort of.
He's just like, back to the point.
Yeah. And I love how like Jon Favreau's just always like, huh? Like just kind of like about the receptionist, and it's just like, no man, about your truck. And it's just like, it's just the weirdest shit.
Yeah,
so funny. But no, genuinely, in terms of stand-up performances, like you guys said, John Leguizamo, love him. I especially love the moment where Jon Favreau goes like, yeah, no, I still can't pay you for a while. He's like, it doesn't matter, man. You're happy, and that's what matters. Best shit right there.
Yeah,
but his son, the character's name is Percy.
My God.
Yeah,
I love that kid's performance so much in this.
It is really special. And
like,
all these little moments, like Kay, you called out when we were watching the film, that kind of ongoing gag about, we need to check with your mom. I told her. It's so good every time.
Funny.
It just lands. And of course, like he's the emotional, as we said, like linchpin of this film. And he's the one that makes me like cry, you know, when I watch this. It's his performance that does it for me.
And then it's just the moment he creates that 1 minute a day, or no, 1 second every single day just for his character, or for Jon Favreau's character, it hits every single time. It does not fail for me. You know, just experience 1 second of every single day of some of the best days you've had in a long time. It hits on another level. If I were to experience 1 second of every single day when we went to Anaheim, that would hit. It's so just imagining that on another scale with your parent, right?
Oh, totally. Well, and also the parent being like seeing it kind of through his kid's eyes, because you can just tell that Jon Favreau is so terrified of being a fuck up for his kid. Like a lot of his hesitancy as a father is all wrapped up in, I want to be enough for him. I want to be enough for him. I don't want him to see me. Like he's so worried about anytime he's in the kitchen, because he's like, there's bad language, there's this, not realizing this kid has probably seen 10 times worse on you. That was one of my favorite jokes of the thing, where it's like, where do you see bad words on the internet? YouTube. And I'm like, yep, that's fucking
perfectly
fair.
accurate.
And I'm like,
Twitter. So is this for sex?
Yeah, no.
Ew, what?
Correction. Now X.
Yeah, exactly.
Which, by the way,
Now
watching
it's
when
just for
Twitter was
racist.
still exactly
And so,
watching it
like-
back then compared to now for what Twitter has become. I'm like, Jesus.
I will say that is one thing about this whole thing is so funny is like Facebook is useful in this movie, and I'm like, it's so funny to see it. Like even him saying Vine, I went, I know exactly what year this came
them
out.
Good old days.
Yeah.
It was so funny because I mean it also was pretty cool. Like it felt like, especially for that, like the video, I am 99% sure they just gave the camera to the kid and just said, you record shit as we're filming.
Yeah.
And like, because it felt more authentic. It didn't feel like a professional cinematographer trying to be like, oh, how do we get this to be authentic? It's like, why don't you
and
record?
they didn't just take
funny.
a scene from the movie already just for it.
That's because that's something that I find I'm so frustrated by in like in movies sometimes, where it's like, this person's filming and then it cuts to it. It's like, clearly like a cinema grade camera.
Shot.
What's interesting about that that like little edit that he makes is most of it, is I reckon shot on that phone. There were like 2 or 3 little bits that you're like, oh man, like literally they've just like copy and pasted and dragged that in from the actual footage that they've taken.
Yeah,
but as you said,
for
like,
sure.
most of it stands out as like this kid has just done it, and that's what makes it so beautiful. But it also makes sense, like you know that there were probably things that just needed to be added in there, so it doesn't take me out of the moment much, but it is funny there. And Cal in chat says that they love when technology clearly dates a project as well. I prefer it with
so
technology
funny.
more than like I find that when jokes do it, or they're talking about like current
Yes.
What are
I go,
those?
like,
yeah,
man.
exactly.
Yeah.
Then you're like, oh, it is one of those things where I'm like, oh yeah,
goats.
I'm sure that joke was hilarious when you were making it on set.
Yeah.
But
Goats are
2
still
years
funny to
later,
me.
it's not funny anymore.
Yeah.
Like
exactly,
it's
exactly.
the thing of being like, it's like the one that I think Deadpool does, where it's like, is dubstep still a thing? Was dubstep a thing when this movie came out? Like, it's
I don't
like,
think dubstep's ever been a thing. Is the thing.
like certainly, it's like it's one of those moments where I'm just like, it's very funny. Like, it's why just your jokes either need to be purposefully dated or it's like shit like that. But it's so funny. Technology, I feel like, is a lot more forgivable and it's
Absolutely.
endearing.
Yeah.
Because it's almost like, oh, that's cute. It's like we were watching Die Hard and they're like, like the touch screen, and it's like, oh, you touch it over there, and he's like, oh, cute toy, and he's like pressing it there, and it's like, yeah, it'll help you find your zipper if you ask it, and it's like this is the most basic of touch screens to us. I'm like, we have that here now,
Yeah.
and I'm like, it's just like, we have a better version here, but at the time, that shit must have been so fucking cool.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
I'm
for
just
sure.
like,
it's wild how
that whole
works
thing.
within films too. Like I love watching it because, as you said, it kind of gives you an appreciation for sort of what we have now too. But
Well,
like,
even like
I have
with
very
first
much
Final
nostalgia for
Destination.
2014, so I am very much like,
I mean,
2014 was a good year for your boy, and I'm like, and whenever I think about that, that's like that, like this movie perfectly sets me. I'm like, yep, the whole aesthetic, everything. Even though this wasn't made in 2014, it feels very 2014.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, you're exactly right.
Yeah, it's so good.
There's a really interesting thing in kind of how they present the story in this film, though. Like, I guess, Kate, you and I both had points on this, and I'm pretty sure we're on sort of the same page with this. I feel like it presents what is going to be an underdog story, and that's not really what this is, in my opinion. Anyway, like I feel that this film has almost like a hidden agenda in a way, where like this is a love story. Like that's all this is. Like if the truck didn't pop off or anything, I don't think would have changed how he felt about what he was doing. And beyond love for what you're doing, it's like love for who you're doing it with. This film has this really beautiful way of showing actually some very real emotional growth for Jon Favreau's character, like emotional intelligence for a parent. That, as the conversation you were talking about before, Kay, there's that scene where he goes, maybe I wasn't the best dad, and I wasn't the best at this or best at that, but like this I'm good at. Like that's a lot of vulnerability to share with your 10-year-old kid, you know? And as we get further and further through the film, you do start with him being so focused on work and trying to do this, and him looking at his kid and going, I thought that when you saw me, you'd want to do like fun stuff. And the kid's like, I just want to be with you. And one of the scenes that encapsulates that the most, and I find is one of the most beautiful scenes in the film, is so simple. And it's followed just perfectly. Like these two scenes back to back. It's they're going to get beignets and they get them. And he's like, all right, we're going to go shopping. The kid is like, oh, we're going to go shopping. He's like, no, we don't have to do it. He's like, what? You don't have to get nothing for work. He's like, no, I just wanted to get beignets with you. And then we get back to the van. And we have that scene of like there's all this huge line of people, and it turns out the kid's been doing it on Twitter, and he's just like, all of this is because of you. Like I feel like that scene is just actual pure love, is what we're experiencing.
And then just the moment he's taking pride and telling people, it's like, you saw us on Facebook? Yeah, no, that was my son. That was him, right?
Man, I'd give anything for my dad to talk about me like that.
I was gonna say I would love to be told by my dad that he's proud of me.
It's one of the few things I actually have in this life.
So I have a mom.
You guys beat on that.
So, yeah. And I'm like, ha ha ha, motherfuckers. My dad's pretty great.
My mom's alive.
Damn it. And but at the same time, it's like you guys are right. Like those scenes, in one thing that Nav and I we were talking about was like this father-son dynamic is really beautiful, and it reminds me of that moment in Ted Lasso with like Roy's niece, and he's like trying to tell Rebecca, because Rebecca is trying to do the thing of like, oh, we'll go to like the American Girl store, we'll go and do all of these things that you loved when you were a kid, and the girl's like not having it because it feels very forced and it feels very this, and he's like, he's just saying they just want to do anything with you. Hey Kaylee, do you want to come to my orthodontist, my orthodontist appointment? And then she's like, yeah, Uncle Roy, thank you for including me. She's like, see? And it's just like, that's I hadn't thought about it that way, but it's like, that is such a beautiful thing. And that's exactly what happens here, where it's like the kid is just so, he desires to be seen with his dad and to do things with his dad, but not in a way that's like, oh, it's kind of the idea of like when you're in a relationship or with friends, it's like, but you're like, sorry, my wife scared me. She came home and used the other door, and then all of a sudden has that, and like, I just saw these eyes in the darkness and just saw, yes, reaching a little bit further. She's saying hello.
I see.
There we are. But nonetheless, the whole thing is that it's like when you have friends or a partner or somebody, it's like,
what's that like?
Man, you got to figure it out at some point.
But friends part or the partner part?
Yes.
But it is that moment of like when people keep showing you a curated version of their life, and it's like, that's not what I want. I don't want the curated. I want to know what's you in raw. Like, what's the, like, I
want you to call me during your bad days when you're
like,
crying.
Tell me you're not okay. Like, tell me the days when you really don't feel like you.
There was a really great interview between Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman when they were presenting the, they were getting ready for Deadpool and Wolverine, and they were just hyping it up, and they were having these random conversations. But there was this really, really real conversation where Hugh Jackman was saying that he had learnt that being vulnerable with his kids wasn't a weakness. And there was a point where he shares this fear. He had I think it was the Oscar performance that was coming up, and he had to do the speech and stuff. Yeah. And he recognized himself being distant. And he actually went back to his kids after and was like, hey, just letting you know, like, if you notice that I'm a little off right now, like, I'm really stressed out about this, and I'm just feeling that a lot. And so if there's anything I feel like I'm acting weird, it's actually not coming. It's not you. I'm just distracted by this other thing, just so you know. And obviously it all went down, it happened, and his kid called in and was like, hey, Dad, just like, how did it go? And they loved being involved in knowing what was going on in the parent's life. And I feel like that's, again, like, I think it's probably a lot more common it's becoming more common. I know, like, my parents have actively changed a lot in the last 3 or 4 years versus beforehand, where it's a lot easier to have those kinds of conversations with them. And it's wild that as a kid, you look at your parent and you go, they've got it all together. And like, they kind of present this Superman image. Dad presents a Superman image. I've got it all together. I've got everything set. Like, I'm good. And you view him as that. And I mean, wildly enough, I found that was like a quality in my father that like I took on myself as well, and that I have to like break apart. And that I go, when I'm in like a relationship with someone, I go, I don't want any aspect of the stuff that I struggle with to be shared with you. I am the rock here. And so it's been a big learning experience to open up and be vulnerable with those people that you care about the most. And it's wild how much it matters to them to know that you're struggling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that it's whether it's a partner or a kid or anything, you know. And go ahead, Kay.
Well, yeah. Well, I think friendship is formed in the in those bonds, rather than, or like friendship and trust. Like Allie taught me a big thing, which where she was saying, like, if you want to build trust with people, it is that you have to be vulnerable with them first as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you can't also just be always the Pollyanna. You have to start asking for help.
Yeah.
And then they will feel it's okay, because once they realize that, it's like, okay, you trust them enough clearly to ask for help. It's not the, hey man, if you need help, you know where you can find it. It's like, but you don't ask me for help, so why would I trust that you're needing help? It's that thing
it's a
of,
very interesting
hey
point,
man,
yeah.
I really need help.
Yeah.
And it's kind of establishing that two-way street of, you're not going to burden me with your problems because I don't feel like I'm burdening you with mine.
I think that it's really key to, in a film like this, where we see like a father do it with their kid. Because again, that kid's going to grow up. And when you're a kid and you look at your parents, there's stuff that you hide or keep away from your parents that you don't share. And I think that that's a very like valid point, because if you're looking at them as people who have it all together and don't need any help, you kind of feel like you have to be that as well. And when a parent comes in and you go like, I really struggle with this today, I really struggle with that, I feel like, again, I want to be able to share that with like kids that I have if I ever bring kids into the world, because I want them to know that anything that they need to get off their mind is like, it's free. And you know, I have that in a lot of the really like close friendships that I have, which luckily, I mean, like today I have two of my best friends on the podcast with me, and both of you have very much been people I've lent on in my most vulnerable moments in my life. I know you guys know, and obviously vice versa. I've felt that from you guys, you know, like two of the people I feel safest with on the planet. And it's beautiful. And I think that, like I said, the key here is that I feel like this film is, yes, about passion, yes, about love. And I think it's also a very like subtle way to kind of teach a bit of emotional intelligence and pull apart some of those like toxic masculinity kind of feelings, you know, and not in a like bashing you over the head, this is a woke agenda type film. Like,
in a very subtle way.
Like, it's literally just you're watching somebody grow, and you're watching somebody learn how to love somebody else, namely his son. And you don't learn how to love your kid without trying to understand them. And so like at the start, he's like, I thought that you just wanted to go and do fun stuff with me. And that's what we would do, because that's probably what he wanted when he was a kid or whatever else. It's like, no, like this, he just wants to do stuff with you. And it's funny that even early scenes in the film when he's disappointing Percy and Percy goes, it's okay. And his reaction to that is, oh, okay, cool. Yeah, he said it's fine. And then later it's like, I'm going to go and talk to him. Like I need to do something about it. I need to have a real conversation with him about it. He's saying it's okay, but it's not okay. Yeah. Like just, it's beautiful growth.
You're absolutely right. And Johnny, I definitely want to know your thoughts on this, but just my quick, just again, just 2 cents to what Naf is saying. It's like, it's exactly it in a lot of the references you brought up. And I think it's really interesting with this. And I think that is something that we are not losing because we're having it in other ways. It's more just, I think people, it's what kind of what we were talking about earlier, politically. One of the things I didn't like about the 2016 to 2020 era of filmmaking was it felt like people needed to wear their opinion on the sleeve. And it wasn't, and you would have a couple of these projects that would come in and really do something very interesting. I think that's why Get Out worked so much, was it wasn't so much talking about the obvious racism in America. It was talking about the liberal racism in America of being like the I voted for Obama 3 times. Like I would have voted for Obama a 3rd time if I could. It's like that kind of, and that's different. Like we're already talking about the obvious other, you know, Kentucky Fried racism. And, you know, it's, my thing is, I think it's very important as storytellers that we tell nuanced stories.
Mhm.
But I think this is a great, like we were talking about, like when I was watching this movie, I'm like, this is an incredible critique of toxic masculinity, of issues with parental figures, understanding emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
But the film doesn't have John Leguizamo go, buddy, he just wants to get to know you. He just wants to do it. Why can't you see that? You know,
He
my
doesn't give him a
dad.
whole giant speech or nothing like that.
No, Jon Favreau figures it out. And I think that that's what makes it so good is it's like, it's the stuff that we're realizing as he's realizing it. And it's like, because I told Naf, I'm like, if I did it, I told Naf at the beginning, I was like, I might be off the train of this movie if I didn't already know that that eventually his son is on the truck with him. Because I was like, his relationship with his son is pissing me off. Like, because I'm like, you're missing the point, bud. You're like passing like ships in the night. But I want to know from your point of view, Johnny, all that shit, all those things, the messaging, the themes, the kind of secret storyline and this whole thing, as Naf so brilliantly said, it's like this film is about passion. This film is about being an underdog story, but it is a love story at the end of the day for himself. Love for himself, love for food, like love for his passion and love for his son. And I'm curious on your thoughts with this, whether it was the first time you saw it, and since you've seen it the most out of all of us, I am curious if that message has evolved for you, because I know at least some of my favorite films, the message evolves over the years. Was this stuff you were thinking about when it came out? Is it stuff that you're more thinking about now?
It's just
take me back.
Because I watched this when I was like 16, like I said, right? When you're a high schooler just trying to figure things out for yourself. Like 16 is that ripe age where like people start telling you like you got to figure out what you want to do with your life. Which for the record, by the way, if anyone does say that to you while you're 16, that's bullshit. You got a lot longer than that.
You have your whole life, kids.
Exactly. But like for me, the main thing that constantly comes back around for me with this film specifically is just finding that passion that you truly do love and acknowledging the fact that no matter the passion, because like I'm seeing it right now with the comic book industry itself, you can be passionate about it all you want, but there's going to be those compromising moments where if you really want to do what you want to do, you are going to need to take a few steps back. That the ideal thing that everyone builds up to within your industry is not the actual peak that you have created for yourself, that others might have helped create for you, or what societally has been made for you, you know? Like in this, it's just like, what does one consider to be like an ideal chef working at a 6-star Michelin restaurant kind of a thing, where we see the character start off and then we see it evolve more so into, no, your passion is food itself, and that the greatest joy, the greatest honor that you have truly felt and are able to share is in the food truck. Which, you know, like there's a lot of stereotypes. I don't know about you, Naf, in Australia, but like at least with Canada and maybe even the States, you know, like when it comes to food truck, it's usually this idea of like, oh, it's greasy, it's quick, it's bar food. That's why they're sometimes parked outside of breweries kind of thing, right? And there's that perception behind food trucks when in actuality, like if you even look, because like I only discovered more about this because of watching the Chef Show, which you quickly mentioned earlier, Naf, during the fun facts. You know, Roy Choi, who worked closely with Jon Favreau about this, talked about the influences of food trucks over the years because it provided an opportunity for recent immigrants and all that to share more of their food to help with their income as they were getting started in America or wherever they moved to, right?
I was reading too that like Roy Choi's like kind of one of his first food trucks was like integral in recontextualizing how food trucks were actually viewed, like a gourmet food truck. Like he was one of the first there, and to answer your question too, like here it's a big thing too. Like there are actually 2 or 3 of my like favorite like restaurants that are food trucks that I watch their Instagram page, and when they're nearby I go. Like that's the food I want, and it's great because
Los Angeles too.
It's great because a lot of the food is like very driven by culture. You know, you get to experience there aren't any Uruguayan restaurants here, but there's a Uruguayan food truck, which a shout out to El Chivi. Like it's brilliant, and that's how I can enjoy like some of the culture from one of the countries that my family's from that I'd never had that food before. We always had like our asado, our barbecues, but never had a chivito. So like, this is my go-to now. It's great.
Yeah.
Well, and food is such a beautiful way of sharing culture, like
and love. And just honestly, like this movie fully reveals the fact that food is an aphrodisiac, especially cooking itself.
Yeah, watching Scarlett Johansson react. I wanted to send that to my mate because Friday night I went over to one of my friend's house and I cooked for him. We made some like steak sandwiches.
Even just saying it sounds sexy,
right?
I go to your house. I'm in the kitchen and I'm like cooking up these steak sandwiches for us, and I've like toasted this beautiful piece of Turkish bread, and I've put some Dijon mustard on the bottom, and then this perfectly cooked steak. I cooked the steak perfectly, and I cut it and I put it all together, and we made these great sandwiches, and then we're watching The Penguin, and I'm sitting there, I'm like, this feels so great to me, to be able to like do this for somebody. And I was telling him, I actually really wanted, I felt like a steak sandwich, and I really wanted it, but I wanted to make it so that somebody could share it with me. And my friend who was in this one was like, I could tell, like I was watching you work, and like it actually felt like you really loved what you were doing over there. I was like, dude, yeah. So I got to get that scene. And I got to send it to my mate, because I was literally like watching it. And I'm like, this is how he was looking at me yesterday. No homo.
Well, it was kind of fun during horror nights and during because that's where I've been for the past couple months. For those who don't know. I would have people over to my house at an ungodly hour in the morning. Sorry, my apartment complex. But the thing would be is I would have them over, and I've started mixing drinks. That's what Allie and I have become our favorite date nights now. Is she'll give me a theme every like Monday, and I'll have to kind of come up with what might work as drinks and a pairing. And so the way that it's going to work is it's like, we either order food together, or she brings something, and it's like we kind of combine, and then we watch something together. My feeling is there is just something about it where cooking for someone and putting the thought into it, enjoying that part, it's just, there is a communication of a love and a language. And I don't know why cooking has always just been so romantic to me. It is on many levels. I think it also is. It is my favorite metaphor for filmmaking and creativity, because I always think about how such simple things like how to use pepper and salt and knowing what. Well, it's true. Hey, listen.
It's funny. I took seasoning from my house to his house the other night, and then I was like, I assumed you had salt and pepper here. And his response was, "Of course, I'm white." I was like, "There we go."
Okay,
there we are. It is correct that like it's a white starter pack. Like, it just it's here.
I will say, like, you actually have cooked for me as well, Kay, and like it's wonderful. Like, you do a great job. Like, you put together this stuff that I was like, I would like, that's interesting. Like, I wouldn't have put those couple of things together, and I'm like, oh, this works. This is nice. I like this. We should start a food truck.
Now I regret not cooking
one with
for
the
you
food
when
truck.
You were here. Oh.
And that's the thing. And like what I love about it, and what I love about this film, and just to speak, because again, I'm just praising the hell out of this film. I'm like, and just because truly this film does a great job of making you understand the idea of ingredients, and the idea of like when you are watching something, and I feel this way about film all the time, is if you understand, like, let's say, your script, your story is the meat. Mm-hmm. That's the meat. Well, how you season it, how you tell that story is a very different thing. It's how it's prepared. It's how it's done. Like, as you said, Neff, like a steak sandwich is a steak sandwich. You can have a mediocre steak sandwich, but what I'm saying, but when you do it right, when you properly marinate it, when you properly have these things, but it's like not everybody does. It's similar to what we were talking about earlier about the diner scene. Yeah. It's that idea of like, it's there. It's food. It's there. And in fact, it's good food. Mm-hmm. It's not even bad food. It's like, this is still high quality food. You would pay for this. And I've never eaten caviar out of a goddamn egg. Like, I've never had that. And I'm like, I don't know.
I have no desire to have that. I feel like I'll have the same reaction I had to a pickle.
It's not particularly appealing.
It's funny. I sent
lava cake.
Like, as I said, I was going to do
the lava cake did so good.
I sent that scene to my mate of like the food seduction scene. And I said, me and you the other night, and the reply back was like, yes, so accurate. That was so tasty. So I won.
Fun fact, actually, I have made that pasta. They put the recipes out, and I've made it. It's quite good.
I did want to go in because I have learned a couple of like pasta recipes now, and I was like,
Ooh.
I definitely wanted to check that out.
It's a very simple one. It's just a lot of chopping for parsley.
Yeah, that's what I figured.
But yeah, like I think all in all, this film is actually like a wonderful little package that is delivered right to your heart, which I've also been called from time to time in my life. But that's
wonderful
neither
little
here
package.
nor there. But I think that like one of my favorite things is how it shows that someone who is kind of like disillusioned with what their kind of vocation means to other people, and like kind of the bigger picture of what they're doing, you know, like I think that it's got so much of that. And, you know, that's also considering Jon Favreau's connections to Star Wars. That's something that happened in The Last Jedi with Luke Skywalker and his, you know, a misunderstanding of what his
There's that Last Jedi reference
meant to the wider universe. But when he understands, right, when he understands what it means, everything comes together beautifully. And that's where we'll end today's episode. So, any final thoughts, my friends, before we move on to cinema a la carte?
No. My democracy is on fire. You can't be doing this to me.
Real quick, let me just.
No.
Sorry, Kay. What's that? What's that, Kay? No. Sorry. Go on.
Son of a bitch.
I
I unmuted just as you said "son of a bitch," but no. But like, you know, all jokes aside, like it's a great film.
Oh
John.
yeah,
It's
absolutely.
Actually, so glad you picked this one.
Truly.
I mean, was it? You and I would always be talking about it so many times, and then you know, I'll sometimes go like, "Man, I wish like Kay or you hadn't seen this so that we could do this for an episode." And then we found out later on, like, "Oh yeah, no, Keegan actually hasn't seen this."
Yeah, so
I think it was one of those moments where I think for a bit, because you guys would talk about it often, there was a part of me that again, because the instinct, and it's the instinct that we try to break in this podcasting world, but because Naf and I's way of showing love to each other is saying, "What up, you cunt?" And that's like is kind of going, for me, that's offensive to say. For you, it's a Tuesday. And so that's like but nonetheless, it's one of those moments of, I can't tell if it was offensive that I said that, but I was going more for the Australian of it all.
That's fine.
Sweet.
You're good.
For Australian listeners,
I've given you the
you're fantastic.
We should just clip that and just send it to every single woman Keegan knows.
Yeah, that could definitely be taken horribly out of context. So
yeah,
absolutely.
But Kay, any final thoughts on the film?
Yes. Ultimately, it was one of those things that I am so glad that I was able to experience it with you guys, and especially now calling you and watching it was such a beautiful experience too. Because I think that I would have still loved it, but I think I would have been able to enjoy it as thoroughly if it wasn't us calling and talking about it, you know?
I wish I could have watched it with you guys, actually.
Honestly, like, but we wanted to still have stuff to talk about. Like in general, Naf and I try not to do that. Mm-hmm. This was like I think all the like, and I think it's only been this season that we've watched like 2 of them together. And that's it. It was Silence of the Lambs in this one. And, because we try to avoid having like conversations over it because we want to talk about it on live.
That's why. And it's funny because we'll do that, and then we'll like actively be avoiding. At the end, there wasn't a "did you like it" conversation or anything. It's just like, "Oh, that was cool. That was cool. Nice."
So let me guess, you guys watch it and like Call of Duty.
Well, it's a thing. It's a thing of like and then there will be times where we'll both be like, especially if it's one of our favorite movies, and we know now the other one has watched it finally. It is
what you think?
It's kind of like you're gonna tell me what you got me for Christmas, sort of vibe. Like you're gonna
you did that with Silence of the Lambs, and I was like, bloop, and then I hung up.
Yep, and then I'm like, so Silence of the Nav.
There it's gone.
And Silence of the Nav.
Silence of the Nav. That would have been good. That would have been real good. That would have been real good. But
you want to silence me?
But to your point,
wow.
We can shove something in your mouth if you really want.
Hey man, that's apparently what we're doing now. So that's like, but
I don't think you're silencing them as much as just shipping them.
Hey, you got to do one way or another. Apparently,
wild. Yeah, but
everybody understand I could not be joking more. Like, please tell, we have to laugh about it or we're gonna cry. All of us queers are in danger. And so like
yeah. Well, like Johnny,
anyway,
any other thoughts that you had on the film you wanted to share?
Hold on, I would talk about 7 things that didn't say. Bottom line is this film is great. Everybody should watch it. It's beautiful. It's what you need right now. Put a little bit of love in your heart. Johnny, tell us.
So main thing I wanted to say is just the fact that we you guys went to the chef truck. My manager at work also went to the chef truck because he went to Las Vegas. And fun fact, Jon Favreau actually works in there every now and then, and he'll just hand out food as well to people.
That's lovely.
Genuinely, I think that more than anything really does show like this chef movie and then the chef TV show is truly like just a passion for him and Roy Choi. He also goes to the Kogi truck too in LA and he hands food out there too.
Sick. That would be dope.
So I love that.
Yeah.
And yeah, for me, like again, this is like a 4th or 5th watch for this film for me, and I love it. And I happily share this with so many people, and I'm so glad that we got to do it on the podcast this week because I love talking about this film as well. And Wish in chat asked if the kid works there as well, but I don't think he does. He's off doing other stuff.
I don't know if that might violate any labor laws. Keegan, are there any labor laws in the States?
Not anymore.
Labor laws or the kid being a kid?
Gotcha. Well, let's jump over into cinema a la carte, right? So we always love to wrap up with a little game of cinema a la carte, and as a reminder, this is where we get to show you. And
this one feels particularly appropriate.
It does, right? It does, and this is where we get to show you the best way to experience this film through the metaphor of food. And so all of us have prepared a menu of our own with this week's film as the main course. We've got an entree or an appetizer to start, a wine that's paired, and a dessert to sort of complete your journey. And you get to decide which set menu you love the most. So be sure to let us know in the comments which one you think is the best way to watch this film. Now I'm going to kick us off with this. So I've put mine together. I've got a title for my set menu.
All right, let's see this.
And it's called Stages of Love, right? And when I was putting this together, I was thinking about, in particular, less of the...
You big softy.
It's less of the, like, films that have a similar vibe to this, but you'll see as it kind of goes, we kind of go through time and the relationships that people have with one another through different stages of their life. And so we start with a beautiful film about a father that has a child whom he has to protect and has no idea is his child. He just feels a need to protect. And
is this a Pedro Pascal film?
This is Logan with Hugh Jackman.
So close.
We're starting there, baby. So again, in terms of vibe, very, very different to this, right? But we do have essentially like it's a parent and a daughter story. It's a father-daughter road trip story. You know, we're looking for a better life. That is our entree. That's where we start. We take our main, which is chef, with the parent, the 10-year-old son, and trying to reconnect with this kid that you kind of don't really know that well, and you realize you have a lot in common with them. I've got that wine is paired with almost the yin and yang of that. So we've got it paired with After Sun, starring Paul Mescal, and this is also about a father with a 10-year-old daughter, but this is more about like trying to connect and not being able to. It's almost the inverse of this. It's the daughter who's trying to connect with the parent and for whatever reason just can't seem to get through that wall. It is a deeply heartbreaking film and it will leave you feeling empty. So again, vibes wise, it's not similar to this, but I did love the kind of connection there and the way that they are sort of opposites of one another. And for dessert, we have sort of two options. Like our primary dessert is Everything Everywhere All at Once, where again, we're reconnecting with a child a little bit older that we don't understand. We're sharing love through like food and also telling you you're fat. Like this is how our like parent shows love that doesn't understand. She's trying. And all of these films do to some extent show like emotional growth or improvements in like emotional intelligence for these parents. And yeah, so you sort of start there, and our secondary kind of dessert, which is sort of similar, is Blade Runner 2049 as well. Probably more similar to Logan than anything, because you have like a parent that's not familiar with the child. And you do have this running sort of understory, or this B plot where Ryan Gosling's character kind of thinks that Harrison Ford is his dad because of the memories and all of this kind of stuff. And maybe he was the firstborn, what's the word, like replicant that's actually like real. And, you know, it ties into this beautiful final scene where it's just him taking the father to see the daughter while he dies on the steps. And so he's kind of completed that relationship at the end of the life. So we have through different stages of life, those relationships coming together. So that's my take on this. There are wildly, none of these films feel anything like Chef, so it's probably going to come last. But those were the sort of films that I was drawn to after watching this.
Okay.
Johnny, do you want to go next?
I'm mad about one of your picks. Like legit, I'm mad because I'm like, I thought I was like, oh, I'm going to be the only one that puts this in there.
You thought you were the clever one. All right.
So Johnny, hit me.
My cinema a la carte, as I like to call it, this menu is called Taste Yourself. Not in that sense.
It's actually called Taste Yourself, not in that sense, or
Yeah,
No, just
taste yourself. Not in that. Not like that.
not like that.
Parentheses, not like that. Or parentheses, title of your sex tape.
Title of your sex tape.
Awful. Go on.
But my entree, because, you know, entrees are meant to be short, sweet, to like really get you going for the rest of your meal, you know? So with that, while it's not a film, I chose season 2, episode 7 of The Bear, the Forks episode with Cousin.
Forks. Yeah, I wanted to talk about that before and I got distracted because ADHD, but like, in terms of finding the reason why, just, yeah.
I think narratively it works perfectly with what Chef is as a film, and it's also, you know,
you can't talk about Chef without The Bear. Like,
exactly.
let's be honest.
No, legit. Whenever I watch The Bear, whenever I finish something, I'm just like, fuck, I want to go watch Chef now. You know,
yeah.
That's what partially contributed to the 25 watches. And of course, our main course is Chef. Oh, also, I forgot to mention, with every single one of these film recommendations, because you know it's Chef, I've also have a food pairing that would go with it. Yes. So I should quickly mention for the Bear Forks episode, I recommend tater tots and guacamole as your starter to go with it while you're watching. And while you're watching Chef, honestly, just a nice, good old sandwich. If you can get a Cubano, get a Cubano. But just make yourself a nice sandwich while you watch it as well. Honestly, get anything to eat while you watch it because you will want to eat something while you watch this movie. Now, in terms of my wine pairing, I went with the Netflix film from 2017 called Unicorn Store. Stars Brie Larson, directed by Brie Larson,
yeah.
And there's something else involving Brie Larson within that respect. But it's it's very much a film about finding yourself, finding your passions, embracing that aspect of you. I remember watching that movie for the first time, just going like, this reminds me of Chef. I love it. It's also got Marvel actors.
AKA Johnny's gonna watch.
Dessert, exactly. And for my dessert, I went with the 2017 Cantonese film called Cook Up a Storm.
Ooh.
Remember how my first film ever with you guys was Challenge Soccer?
Still our highest video to date.
Was it? I love that.
No joke, Sean. I don't know how.
So
I do not know how. Johnny, I need you to understand. This isn't we're talking about like normally our videos, like our good videos get like maybe 500 views, right? I don't know if we're the only ones on the internet to ever have talked about this movie because we're in like 3K. Like 4K. I'm like no joke, insane. 4K. Like hold even on my other channel
number, like you're
because you didn't understand like how
this film has 22,000 streams.
22,000.
That's a lot.
That's so much more than it just than like not that we don't deserve it. But I gotta like re-listen to that episode because I'm like, what did we do?
You had me on.
Apparently. So I'm expecting this to do just as well.
It better now. We set that expectation. But
anyway, continue.
So my dessert is Cook Up a Storm. Imagine Shaolin Soccer, but with food.
Goddamn. Sold.
Exactly. Sold. Just the amount of like insanity that goes into.
Are we talking like season 3? sold, or sorry, season 4 sold, or are we talking like we watch it ourselves and chat about it? Because like I'll hold off if I need to.
I mean, I'm down to watch it all together.
We'll talk about it off stream. We'll figure it out.
We'll talk about, that sounds like a season 4 sold if I hear it.
Yeah, there you go. But yeah, no, it's just like the extremities that some of the people go through when they're like just cutting a fish.
That's so funny.
And all that, you know,
That's
they take
so
it very
funny.
seriously, but to like a comedic level. And with that pairing, I just recommend just like a nice little tray of sushi, you know. But yeah. Oh, also, I guess I forgot to mention for my unicorns store recommendation, just a milkshake. You know, you gotta have something to drink.
Nice,
right?
Nice. Great picks. Just give them to me again, just from the top to bottom.
Yeah, just roll it back.
We got The Bear, Forks, season 2, episode 7, Chef, Unicorn Store, and Cook Up a Storm.
Nice. And yeah, mine was Logan as the entree, Chef as the main, with After Sun as the paired wine, and then Everything Everywhere All at Once as dessert with Blade Runner if you're feeling extra sad. Now, Kay, finish us off. No, not like that.
Well, I wanted to do more to what this movie did for me, and I kind of wanted to share it with everyone else, for everyone who's going through a hard time right now, and feeling a lot of emotions. Here are movies to validate that experience, but also to give you courage to continue to go on and find beauty in life, and in some aspects, the courage to do the impossible. So this menu is titled "It's Gonna Be All Right."
Yeah,
it's Shark Tank 5 times. Not Shark Tank, sorry, Shark's Tale. 5 times in a row.
Exactly. But the appetizer is Lord of the Rings: The Two Towers. To start, mainly because of the monologue at the end and the Battle of Helm's Deep. Just in general, if you're talking about like evil trying to overtake you in a movie that just always gives me hope, this movie got me through the pandemic. It really, like, I want Sam's speech tattooed on my body, and I think that it's a perfect appetizer for this. And then the main being Chef, because it's like Lord of the Rings is a lot, so you're gonna want something that's like, you know, gonna kind of fresh the palate, be kind of lighter, something that you're like, oh cool, all right, I'm ready to continue. And then you pair that wine with Everything Everywhere All at Once. I refuse to change this because it speaks to this. A movie not only about the wonderful, like, incredible immigrants that we have in this country, but also a movie that is incredibly special, talking about the female experience of life, and also talking about the experience about mothers and daughters, fathers and daughters, and also, again, speaking to at least what Naf and I tried to put in the intro, the idea of how we choose to fight. And about how that defines us. And we can either choose violence or we can choose a way forward with love. And in the words of Ke Huy Quan, we got to be especially kind when we don't know what's going on. And when we're all a little scared. And I think that movie has healed me in so many ways, got me through some of the darkest moments of my life. And I think that movie is a rich cocktail full of everything you could possibly. It's a Long Island iced tea is what it is. It just has a little bit of everything. And dessert is the perfect dessert movie because it's Grand Budapest Hotel. That movie is dessert.
I see that
in a movie. Like it's a movie that also talks about like it kind of makes the silliest out of what literally is a fascist occupation of a country. It's literally saying like, oh yeah, you know how this whole movie's about that? No, it's about the tiny little like article in the newspaper. It's my favorite cut. One of my favorite moments in all of cinema is it's a movie that my dad accurately describes as, when I watched the first 10 minutes, having never seen a Wes Anderson movie, for the first 30, I thought it was the worst thing I had ever seen. But then as soon as you hit the 30-minute mark, it becomes the absolute best thing I've ever seen. We both have talked about that movie to this day of being like, that it is my number 4 favorite movie of all time. So just to run that back for the It's Gonna Be All Right menu, we have Lord of the Rings: The Two Towers, extended edition. Come on, don't be a chump. And the main being Chef, with a wine pairing of Everything Everywhere All at Once and the dessert of the Grand Budapest Hotel. Have fun with your tears and have fun with your feels. This one is going to be a wild fucking ride.
Hell yeah. No, great choices to both of you guys. And yeah, guys, if you are in chat, feel free to let us know which of those pairings you guys like the best in the comments or in chat. But thanks again to all of our listeners for joining us today. And once again, I'm Nav, and you can find me at Seen by Nav across all of your main socials. Kay?
My name is Kay, and you can find me at Movie Man Opinions on pretty much everything. We got a lot of really cool stuff coming, so stay tuned for an incredible journey that we're going to take you guys on. And John, where can people find you?
People can find me at marvelous_Jonathan. That's JONATHAN, not ON at the end. And if you do spell marvelous, it is with 2 L's because that's how we do it up here in Canada.
Let's go, baby.
But yeah, do it on Instagram. Nope, I was going to say Twitter, but I'm not on Twitter. Do it on Instagram, Threads, and TikTok.
Have you got anything going right now that you want to plug? Do you want to let people know what they can find when they find you?
Nothing really to plug. Just I'm trying to get back into reviewing comics. I've missed like 2 weeks because I hurt my back.
Yeah.
Apparently 26 is when your back starts hurting.
Oh gosh. I need to go back a few years. Well, yeah, fair. But as a final reminder, you can find all the links to our individual pages in the description below. And there's even a Google form that you can fill out if you have a specific creator or a film you'd love to see on the podcast. You can also find one with the films on Instagram, TikTok, or your favorite podcasting platforms of choice. But for now, as promised, we'll see you guys later, and stick around to feast your eyes on the next film on the weekly watch list. See you later.
It's the guys from One with the Film. They'd want me to reveal the next guest and film on the podcast? Wait, the next film of your weekly watch list is Jujutsu Kaisen 0? This is no coincidence. They must also want... Oh shit, it's me. I'm the guest? Well, let's get to it then. See you next week.